You're listening to Tapestry, a podcast by a music lover for music lovers. I'm your host, Kelly. Join me as I learn more about the common thread that weaves throughout our lives, music. On episode 11 of Tapestry, I have a conversation with Natalie Hornyak, the singer and pianist of New Jersey-based seven-piece progressive rock band Cabinets of Curiosity. We delved into a variety of topics, including furthering opportunities for women in the progressive music scene, writing songs about traffic on the Garden State Parkway, and even fan fiction about the band Genesis. You're listening to the song Fractals and Coastlines off their new album, The Chaos Game. So, Natalie, thank you for joining me today. I am speaking with the singer and pianist, I guess, of Cabinets of Curiosity, and you are a seven-piece prog band?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. So, I do a little bit of piano every so often, but we have like a full-time keyboardist who does most of it. So,
okay.
I think there's I play like one song and then like one solo on the album that's coming out tomorrow.
It is enough that on your Bandcamp, your credits are listed as vocals and piano. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to give you that credit. I'm going to give you that pat on your back. But yeah, so I'm excited to do this interview for a lot of reasons, but mostly because I think your music is outstanding, but really you have an album coming out tomorrow, and yes! I figure that would be a really timely thing, timely interview to bring you on and talk about that. But to me, as a brief, I would describe to people listening, you guys to me kind of sound like a mashup of like Thank You Scientist, Jethro Tull, maybe a little bit of stuff like the Tea Club, and just like it has that really fun, funky, jazzy, absolute like prog madness type of sound, and I appreciate that a lot. So, tell me all about this new album, The Chaos Game.
Yeah, sure. Before I get too far, though, one thing about Thank You Scientists that I think is hilarious is I didn't realize until like this year that I went to the same college that they did at the same time.
No way. I know you're from New Jersey, so I figured, what are the chances of her running into any of them?
You would think, the chances might actually be kind of high, and like maybe it even happened and we didn't realize it, but I don't know any of them or like remember them, so yeah.
Was that, what's it called, Montclair?
State?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you go for music?
No, I went for I wanted to do something a lot more practical, so I got a philosophy degree. But it's crazy because it's a very like walkable campus. Like it's a pretty big college. I think it was the second biggest in New Jersey when I went. Second to Rutgers, but it never felt very big. It was like you get to know like a lot of people from like all sorts of different programs just because all the buildings are in close proximity. And yeah, I'm still like, it drives me nuts that I didn't like meet them back then. And then like I'd have some prog friends.
That's crazy. But I mean, I think they're based out of northern New Jersey as well, right? Or Okay.
Yeah, they're north.
Yeah. I mean, have you like, I imagine you guys run in the same circles because they travel quite a bit, but I imagine they do a lot of local shows like Philly, northern New Jersey shows and stuff.
I think I might be like within 2 degrees of them because I was talking about this with my band. I'm like, guys, like I went to college with Thank You Scientists and someone in my band knows somebody who knows them. So like, yeah, we're like in like, I have like a secret goal If any of them hears this, I'm gonna be like so embarrassed. But like, I have a secret goal to like network with them eventually and make like band friends.
Well, it's not secret anymore. And also, I actually just got the email from them because I'm on their street team mailing list.
Oh, no kidding.
And I pretty much go see them live every time they come. And actually, after the New Jersey show, they're hitting Pittsburgh April 9th, I think. So I already have my tickets for that. Like, I will hook you up. Sal actually at a show, he recognized me from Instagram, and I almost wanted to die because I put up like crappy drum covers of their stuff. Like, this was when I was still pretty much a beginner drummer, so it was kind of like, it took a lot for me to put it out there because I knew it was so far from perfect. And I went to a show, and he's like, "Oh, you're that girl from Instagram," and I'm like, "What? What? I'm sorry, what?"
So
like, I didn't know what to
cool.
do. So if I can find him and go, "Do you remember me, the girl from Instagram?" Well, I have a friend and 6 other friends that really want to do stuff with you guys. So I'll see if I can pull some strings. But anyway, I guess I should rein us back in. So please.
I was like, first question. I'm already like completely diverting. Yeah.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. So the Chaos Game kind of, it's our first full length album. And I guess the story behind it was when we decided to put an album together, we wanted the first one to be something that we all contributed to. Our lead guitarist, James DePrava, has like 3 albums worth of just like really amazing material he's had like written and arranged and ready to go. But it's also going to take us a long time to learn because, like the song I'm learning this week is, it has like a long section of 1916. So it's really complex. We're like taking our time learning that stuff. But in the meantime, we're like, let's all put our first album together with something from like each of us and see what happens. And there's if you look at like the songwriting credits, there's some from me, some from James, Brand, Jared, Anthony. Like there's a lot of different hands in the pot. Yeah. So it's definitely a very collaborative album. The concept actually was kind of the tail wagging the dog because one of the songs on the album, actually my favorite song on the album, Fractals and Coastlines, is a song we finished writing actually in 2016, I think. And at the time, I was like listening to it, and you've heard it. Like musically, it's got like some really intense dramatic passages, but then like really goofy, almost like Frank Zappa-esque passages as well. And I'm like, this is like, there's like a lot going on here. It kind of switches the mood a lot. Like what would be a good topic to write about? Because I do the lyrics, and oftentimes like if James writes a song, he'll tell me like the kind of concept he had behind it to steer me in the right direction with the lyrics. Like, so sometimes it's a story or just like a thought or a topic. For this one, it was just, I wrote this fun song, have fun with it. And I'm like, huh. And for some reason, I got the idea to steal one of the scenes from the novel I was writing at the time. Because I was like, this has like dramatic elements and then also comedic elements as well. So I kind of threw that together. It was really fast. And we played it. It sounded cool. Everyone liked it. But like nobody understood what it was about because it was this random chapter in a story I wrote. And there's like 3 different people singing in the song without like telling you who they are. So I was like, oh, yeah. So what's happening at this point in the novel is, explaining the scene. And James was like, can I read that?
Nice.
My novel? Yeah. I'm like, sure, if you really want to. So I sent him the first draft. And to my surprise, he really liked it. Or else, he was being very nice to me. Either way, I don't need to know. But he's, and then eventually, I think Bran read it. And a little bit later, we were talking about what's this album going to be about? Do we want it to be a concept album or what? And, we're a prog band. So, of course, we wanted it to be a concept album. And
you can't do anything else. It's not allowed.
Exactly. And then Brandon was like, why don't we make it about your novel since we already have the one song that has lyrics? And I was like, well, that'll be easy because I have like 300 pages of words. I basically just have to
put the music behind it, sort of.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how the Chaos Game happened.
So that's a perfect place to point out that it sounds like the concept of this album is, and I quote, "The storyline follows Julia, a mild-mannered paralegal summoned by the god of chaos and order to destroy, recreate, and save the universe." I cannot say I have ever heard an album about that. So
yeah.
I took some time to read the little accompanying novella, basically, to the album, and it is hilarious, for one thing.
Oh, thank you.
And it just kind of reminds me of like a Neil Gaiman or a Kurt Vonnegut kind of very...
I love so much right now.
Douglas Adams, maybe just a little bit of like that very dry, quirky, like it absolutely puts you in a real place as a setting, but it's totally fucked up and also not a real place. Like the characters feel very human. And I think in this day and age where physical media sales are down and bands are looking for ways to engage their audience with their music at another level that's going to really draw them in. The fact that you wrote a small novel to go along with this album is impressive, to say the least, but it's just, to me, it was just fascinating, and it really gives you a window into it because, I mean, sure, you can interpret music however you want to interpret it, but it's kind of nice to go, okay, here's the crazy storyline. These are all the characters I've put into it, and, like, I mean, it is really out there, and I love it. Like,
oh, thanks.
Like storing souls in file cabinets, and just, like, I should just let you explain, but, like, how... Now that I know that the music kind of came after, how did you come up with that storyline, and like what part of your life were you in that made you want to write a novel about that?
That's a really good question. I ask myself that sometimes myself. So actually, you were right on the money with Kurt Vonnegut and Douglas Adams, like two of my like biggest, like all-time biggest influences as a writer. And then another one is who, if you do like Douglas Adams a lot, I recommend to everyone, is Jonathan L. Howard, who has this series called the Johann Cable series. It's about this necromancer. So it's kind of like it's almost like the steampunk version of Hitchhiker's Guide. It's just a different setting, a very similar type of like cosmic humor that's super wacky. So that's definitely the kind of story I wanted to write. It was kind of I started writing it in 2011, back when I was working up in North Jersey. I had a job with a very, very there were some tough circumstances. I'm not going to get too into it, but I would go up and down the Parkway all the time, which is kind of where In a Day comes from.
I was going to say the fact that you wrote an entire song about how much the highways in New Jersey suck, and you somehow managed to fold it into this album is amazing. But continue.
Yeah. So so that was actually a song I didn't expect to be on the album. It's a song I wrote that James really liked a lot, and he's like, main character in your novel works in North Jersey, drives up and down the Parkway. Like, we could put that on the album. And it's like the like singer songwriter kind of like pop, like adult alternative track on the album. That's where we're hoping for our crossover success into top 40. But
yes.
No. But I was like, I can kind of see it. And he's like, no, you got to trust me on this one. I was like, if you want it, sure. But yeah, so there were definitely some things I could relate to with working kind of dead end job and underpaid, undervalued, just not really loving things. It was 2011. I had graduated college in 2010 at the height of the recession. So, we were all in a mood as a generation.
Yep. We're close in age. I get that. So,
and then the cosmic part is, I mentioned I have a philosophy degree. So a lot of that was just like me having fun and playing with concepts. In epistemology, which is the philosophy of knowledge, it's kind of like epistemology is when you ask questions like, how do we know what we know? How can we trust knowledge? You get a lot of like weird thought experiments, like who's to say that God doesn't destroy and recreate the universe randomly, or like every second, just so fast you don't notice it. I'm like, that would kind of make a fun novel. Yeah. And what's funny is let me say it today because I just finished binging all 3 seasons of The Good Place, which is now my favorite show.
I didn't get past I didn't even get past season, I didn't get into season 2, but I probably am never going to finish it. So if you want to spoil anything, honestly, go for it, because I don't really care. I probably won't finish it.
Oh, man. I'll say this much. I'll say that when I watched The Good Place...
Is it revealed that Ted Danson, creates and destroys the universe? Because that's kind of essentially what they're getting at. I mean...
No, but I can say that, I was watching the show, and there was just so many things that were so similar to my novel. It was like, no one's going to believe me that
I came up with it first.
But, it's the same, black comedy, just this weird, made-up, not technically religion, but just, the state of the afterlife. And, there are a lot of similarities.
Now that you say that, though, I don't know why that comparison didn't come leaping out at me, because there are so many weird things in that show, like in the first or second episode when the giant shrimp comes rolling out of the sky. Just all the really strange, hyper bizarre, everything's perfect except for this one little tear in the rift that makes you go, wait a second, something's not right. That kind of formatting of a story is so interesting to me.
Yeah, and I can't say too much about that in The Good Life without spoiling season 2 for you, but I will say that the main threat in the first half of my novel is that chaos, which is basically it's a kind of vague phlebotinum as TV tropes would call it, force in my book that just threatens to tear things apart. It happens all the time. It's almost like entropy, but on a more metaphysical level, a metaphysical entropy. And if you don't destroy the universe in time, chaos will completely destroy both the universe and the gods. So the gods can't recreate it.
Okay.
So that's kind of the main drama in the first half of my novel, and why Julia gets summoned to help with that effort, because there's a lot of paperwork.
Oh, and that's okay. And because she's a paralegal, they're like, you're already great at this. We need you.
Yeah, they're like, if you can deal with I think it was it was personal injury law. If you can deal with personal injury law in New Jersey, working for the meanest boss in New Jersey, then you can handle destroying and recreating a universe. Right. Yeah, so that's the novel, and then the album. It's a pretty thick novel. It's when I say thick, I mean for a first book, it's 105,000 words. But the album companion is, I basically pulled the passages that I thought best kind of at least give you a sense of what's going on in the plot, while also explaining what's happening in the actual songs. So I pair them with the lyrics that they correspond to. Whereas the actual novel, there's huge chunks of it that the album doesn't get into. And I was like, oh no, am I leaving out too much? But I'm glad that it actually at least like starts to fill in what's going on with the song.
No, so it definitely is a really nice, exactly what you can call it, a companion. It's like, it kind of gives you the broken down version of it. Like if you don't have the time to listen to it all in one chunk, you can at least skim through the 50 pages or so, and you get the artwork and all the other cool stuff. And it just, I don't know, it really helps bring that experience to life, I guess.
The artwork is incredible. Actually, our rhythm guitarist's little sister did all the artwork when we were thinking, like, who do we want to do the art for the album? And Brandon was like, oh, my sister's a really good artist. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, I'm not knowing much, what to expect. He shows me her Instagram, and I'm going through, and I'm like, oh my God, holy crap, she's incredible. Yeah. So then, we're like, yeah, come work with us. And I didn't realize until I guess 2 weeks of corresponding back and forth, drawing up the contracts, laying everything out, that she was 16 years old.
That's nuts.
I was like,
I see a lot of my own style in hers, and I know that at her age, and now that you said that and what she does, that must have taken her forever. But I mean, that's crazy. It is beautiful. It's beautiful work.
So good. Yeah, it's great. Very, all of her characters are just so emotional, and it's also just the most ego stroking thing in the world when someone is drawing your characters. It's like, oh my God, that person was in my head.
Yeah, the best thing that happens to you as an artist is when people make you fan art. It is trust me, I've been there. It's the most amazing thing in the world. So now you have a giant chunk of validation coming out tomorrow that people everywhere will be listening to, including myself. So,
and like I said, I'm a millennial, so I could use all the validation I can get. There's never enough, so I'll take it.
The world might be crumbling around us, but I made this really cool music.
Exactly, and we can all go die now in the blazing inferno that is our planet. Yeah. Speaking of fan art, have you ever seen? I just thought of this. Were you on LiveJournal when we were teenagers?
You know what?
LiveJournal?
I wasn't that heavy on LiveJournal, but this is actually I guess this is probably the first episode post breakup with my ex-fiance, and I have nothing bad to I have nothing bad to say about her. It just didn't work out, but I met her through DeviantArt, and that was where our relationship stemmed. So whether it was DeviantArt or LiveJournal, it's that's just where you went on the internet between 2003 and 2007.
It was a good internet.
It was a good internet.
So on LiveJournal, there was I got a lot of that's kind of where I first met prog people on the internet, but I was joining all these LiveJournal.
Really?
Yeah, on LiveJournal communities. It was
where
great.
Was I?
It was there was some good stuff on there, but I was in a couple of Genesis ones, but then there was a LiveJournal community called Genesis Slash.
Oh no. Yeah, is that exactly what you mean by that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's exactly what you're thinking. Yeah. And there's some there's some stories.
Phil Collins.
Some fan art. Oh yeah. Phil with Peter. Peter with Tony. Actually, Phil was actually one of the least shared. It was mostly Peter and Tony. Those were definitely the two popular ones. And obviously I only know from skimming.
Obviously. No, you never spent hours looking at it or reading it. I'm sure you didn't.
It was just hilarious. To this day, my husband doesn't believe that I just found it hilarious. And I would that was my sole interest in the project. I personally think that shipping real people.
Kind of weird.
A little weird. Yeah. Please don't ship me with anyone, any future fans who I don't know why you would, but
she's happily married. Don't leave her alone.
Yeah. You can ship me with a nice sharp Vermont cheddar.
All right, you heard it here. You're divorcing your husband for cheese. I think that's what you're trying to tell me. Well,
oh,
okay.
no. It's just, it's on the side. It's like a threesome.
Cheese.
It's a cheesome.
Cheesome.
He's fine with that.
Yeah.
He's lactose intolerant, so he can't have the cheese, but he can watch me eat the cheese.
If your partner doesn't let you have a threesome with cheese, then you need to dump their ass immediately. That's why my last relationship didn't work out. She wouldn't let me have Gouda in bed. So, that being said, if you weren't married to your husband and you had to marry somebody else, who would it be?
So when I was in college, there was a time in my life where I thought the only man I would ever find attractive was Peter Gabriel circa 1971 through 73, like right before he cut his hair off.
Very specific time
for the
range.
land license. Yeah, like long-haired, pretty Peter Gabriel. That's the only Peter Gabriel that I was personally interested in.
I love this conversation. It's great.
It was so pretty.
I will be Googling that later. That's a pitfall in my prog history, is I haven't gone back and listened to a lot of the classics like Genesis, and I don't want to say like I have zero knowledge, but I'm definitely a modern prog kind of gal, but you take a lot of inspiration from the older stuff, so yeah, I got to work back in time on that.
So that's part of my problem, is I have the opposite thing where I take so long to get into artists. Like if I hear a song, I might have to listen to it like 5 times in a row until I feel like I've really digested it. And then with an album, I have to like I'm very, very slow with like listening to music. Like I have to like really dig my teeth in.
Right.
Which makes it hard for me to like keep up with like what's new. Like I keep hearing about all these amazing bands. I'm like writing the names down. I have like these docs. I have your amazing playlist, and it's like, there's so much. I will probably not run out of new things to listen to ever.
No, ever.
Yeah, I'll probably still be working on this list.
Well, that's kind of a hang up of mine, at least when it comes to purists, and that could be in any musical community or really any like fan community in general, is that certain people like to think that the only good music that's available is every album Rush ever made and every Yes album that they ever made, and then that's it. Like, and King Crimson, and that's it. Like, no, there's been no music since 21st Century Schizoid Man, and then that's it. Like, I understand where people do take a long time to discover new music, and that's fine. That's arguably what I need to do more of, is actually dive in. But how do you kind of cross over, like, drawing the old inspiration and making it new in your own type of work?
That kind of comes like naturally. It's I kind of get bored writing like the same kind of stuff over and over again. So one of the things that will make me go out and seek new music is when I feel my own songwriting like start to get stale. It's like, I've kind of been like trotting out the same kind of tropes for a while. I need to like find like a new sound to listen to so I can start to like branch out a little bit more. So sometimes that's kind of like my impetus to find new music. But in terms of like, as soon as I start listening to a band, like I like over the past year, I've gotten like obsessed with Leprous. Oh. It's already like, it's like I said, it's only kind of been a year.
Have you gone through the entire discography?
Oh yeah.
What about the demos? Have you heard the 2 demos?
No.
Aeolia and Silent Waters. They're on YouTube. They sound like a totally different band. It's bizarre.
I believe that.
They're really weird. Like, and Leprous is already weird, but they're like weird.
That's awesome. Thank you. You just gave me a new thing to look forward to.
See, there you go.
I would listen to Einar sing like, singing the phone book is like the tired old cliche, but I would listen to that phone book.
Yeah, me too.
Backwards and forwards. Yeah, he's such a huge inspiration to me as a vocalist. I I saw them with Haken and Bent Knee a few months ago. What a tour. Like, that's definitely like one of those I think is going to go down in the history books. Like, that was like one of those moments where I was like, I'm going to remember this like 20 years from now. Like, this is going to be like one of those things that I think to myself, like, aren't we so lucky to have like been there?
Yeah.
But I remember like when I got the tickets, I was like, ooh, am I going to have self-esteem after this?
That's a fair point. And what a strange tour too. Like, all three of those artists together. I was kind of concerned that might not really jive, but I saw that tour too, and like, I'm not even really a Haken fan, to be perfectly honest. I can't stand Ross's voice, but then when I watched them do it live, I stood there just like the entire time. I was just slack-jawed because I have never seen a more proficient band play live. And the fact that I don't even like them that much, and I'm like, oh, Haken, best band ever live, go see them. Like, give them all your money, even though I don't really like how they sound, go do it.
That's kind of how I feel about Between the Buried and Me. It's not that I don't like their music. When, like, if I have like my music on shuffle and they come on, I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, but you don't seek them out typically.
Right. Yeah. But I've kind of like seen them twice because they were like, on the ticket with the other bands I was seeing.
Same.
And both the times it was just like, damn, these guys are impressive. And like so much fun to see live. Mm-hmm. Like so much fun. Like that is like a band I would like be happy to see live like a million times again.
Well, yeah, like you said about how we have to think about how lucky we are to be in an era where we can see so many great bands. And I'm sure a lot of us would love to go see, Rush one more time or ELP one more time or whatever. But,
well, ELP, yeah.
That's why I go see so many shows.
There's like emotions with that.
Well, yeah. And I actually, sometimes if I ever just sit for too long and I start thinking depressing thoughts, one of the depressing thoughts I think is, man, all the bands that I listen to someday are going to end up quitting. Like, they're going to die. And I just sit there and I'm like, no, I can't think like that. But even though it's true, and luckily in our lifetime at least, I mean, there haven't really been that many great bands that I love that have broken up yet. So I hope I have not jinxed everything by saying this on the record. Is there a band that once, I don't want to say once, you guys aren't really out not touring, but like you aren't really playing a ton of live shows at this point, right?
Right, yeah. We're actually right now working on our next EP. We're kind of like, we have this like marathon like schedule of like, all right, how long is it going to take for us to like actually like finish recording all of the material? Because we have, like I said, like many albums worth of material, just like built up. So it's like, okay, so what's the best like time frame to do this? Because we got a lot.
but you don't really have the interest in doing like a tour cycle or a show cycle to promote the album, and then like, because a lot of bands will go back and forth. Like Between the Buried and Me does that all the time. We're going to write one EP, tour it, then write another one, tour it, that sort of thing.
Right now we have some personnel issues that are making that tough. We could play live, I guess, without a drummer and like using a drum track, but it's like, what's the point of seeing a band without a drum? Like, I'm not like, I just love watching drummers. Like, you guys make it fun to watch.
That's how I knew I wanted to play drums. I would always watch the drummer. I was like, oh yeah, okay, true. Well, okay.
And so just like, you can't beat like live drums for setting a vibe and a groove. So, if anyone listening to this is a drummer
and is a very good one,
can handle 1916 time better than I can.
I think that was one of our first conversations we had, actually, was the fact that I know the New Jersey prog scene like strangely well for someone that lives 6.5 hours from it. And I will shoot a group message to every person I know in every band and go,
oh, thank you.
Who is a drummer? But that's the problem with drummers. They're always playing in like 5 bands. It's hard to find one that's available.
It's a rare resource. You guys are like worth your weight in diamonds.
Time for me to get good at drums.
Well, it's funny because you're like, yeah, when I was a beginner drummer, playing Thank You Scientists covers, it's like, that's actually pretty damn impressive for a quote unquote beginner.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, what's great about the album now is that, like, we did have the EP where it's like, hey, we're looking for a band. Or for a drummer, you like this music? Can you drum to it? Cool, join our band. But now we have like a whole full-length album. So it's like, maybe if enough people figure out who we are, that some drummer somewhere in New Jersey is like, I need to drum for these people.
Seriously, I'll ask. He has the best name, Steven Wilson. I'll ask Steven Wilson from Deeply Woven. I'll put his name out there. I don't know what else he has going on, but he's a hell of a drummer. And
thanks.
I don't know if he lives close to them, but I know George from Deeply Woven is based right outside of Camden. So I'll
sweet. It's like right down the road from me.
Make some connections or something. But yeah, so that's a good segue then into the real Steven Wilson. I feel like and I don't want to stereotype this because that is so, I just don't want to, but I do find it funny. A lot of women tend to love Steven Wilson. It's like practically a trope, but I guess that's kind of dumb to say because a lot of guys do too. But it feels like to me, all the women that I know who love Steven Wilson are like, I would marry Steven Wilson. Like, he is just my idol. He's just amazing. And I know that you had him and, well, I don't know if you specifically mentioned Porcupine Tree, but obviously it's an associated project. So you had Steven Wilson as one of your influences.
Yeah.
When did you, like, he's always kind of the crossover, like, hey, I grew up listening to all this historical prog, and now I've found Steven Wilson because he's like historical prog, but now, like, how did you come to find him, and how does he influence a lot of what you do?
So funny story about that. When I was 16, I was dating this guy who was into prog metal. And, this is like, I was still a teenager. So like, I was like all about 1972 as the best year in music. I liked Dream Theater. But like, I didn't know that much about like the current, the contemporaneous prog scene back then. And yeah, so I started dating this guy and he's like, I gotta like get you into Porcupine Tree and Opeth.
Wait,
and I'm like,
I just realized that comment I made today on Facebook. I was like, hey girl, do you listen to Porcupine Tree? It happens. It literally happened to you.
Yeah, well, I liked him more than he liked me. So that was more of a push-pull kind of scenario. But because I was protecting my emotions as well, because I don't like being vulnerable, still don't. I don't really write music about my feelings very often. But I was very like, okay, yeah, you want me to listen to these bands that you like, I get it, yeah, yeah, because he kind of had that, like, we had like two fighting egos, and I think the first song he showed me was Baby Dream and Cellophane. And I was like, it's okay. It's okay. Didn't really like pursue it any further. And then he burned me Damnation. I was like, this is pretty. So Damnation by Opeth.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I see your poster in the background.
Oh, yeah. I have a tattoo as well. I'm a little bit of a fan.
Nice.
Yeah, so I liked Damnation a lot, but I was like, I'm still not into the whole like death metal thing. I don't know if obviously I didn't have the tattoo back then, so I basically just kind of left it alone, and I would basically make fun of him for like trying to get me to listen to those two musicians, those, I guess, groups, Porcupine Tree, all the time. And then when we broke up, I remember I was listening to like some prog radio station, and Heart Attack and a Lay-By came on. And I was like, this song's all right. Yeah, okay, I'll give you this one's pretty, okay? Okay, you win. I didn't really listen to Porcupine Tree, like, again after that until my sophomore year of college, when I was like, you know what, I haven't really, like, checked out in a while, In Absentia.
That's like, my favorite album by them, for sure.
Yeah. I remember my ex-boyfriend tried to burn me that, and it just didn't work. Like, the disc was corrupted. So, but, you know, I remember liking Heart Attack and a Lay-By, so let me just end. I'll never forget just the transition from, like, the high-pass filter, like, telephone filter vocals on, no. Yeah.
You could be wrong right now, and I wouldn't know, because I don't listen to that much of either of them, really, but I know all the really, you know, I know, like, I know all, like, the famous songs by them, not the deep cuts, really.
Oh, no, Blackest Eyes, first track on In Absentia. I remember hearing the transition from, like, the high-pass, like, telephone filter vocals in the verses, and then it cuts to this extremely, extremely crystal clear, like, cutting those harmonies in the swim with me into... And I was just hooked. And I listened to, and then after that I was like, I should listen to Opeth again. It wasn't long before I was like getting the Opeth logo like inked into my skin. I literally bled for that band.
Who wouldn't? I mean,
they're so good.
Well, that's kind of that's sort of one of my bands that I try to use as a gateway to a lot of people as well, because they have such a distinct sound, but then because they have such a wide variety of styles, if you have a friend that's like doom and gloom and black metal and death metal and stuff, you can show them all their older albums.
Early
you
stuff.
You can show them Orchid, you could show them all that stuff. And then if you have the 70s prog wank friends, you just put on Heritage or Pale Communion and you're fine. So they're endlessly versatile.
I have an opinion about their new quote unquote. I don't think their last three albums are, like, people call them like their prog albums, because, you know, they're all clean vocals and they're not as heavy. There's no death metal, but I actually think their most progressive album by far is Ghost Reveries. By far. I think that's way more progressive than like Heritage. Yeah, Heritage was, like, I would call that a prog album, but then Pale Communion and Sorceress,
not so much. Maybe, I don't know.
They kind of they remind me so much of like late 60s, like almost like proto prog, like back with like groups like Soft Machine and like I guess the Strawbs I'm thinking of too. Mm-hmm. Obviously, like all of the European bands that he's always mentioning that I'm
like the Canterbury scene bands, those types of things. Okay. And
so I'm always like, it's kind of like I have that unpopular opinion that like their three most recent albums are like less prog, but they are more throwback.
I actually wouldn't disagree with you. I just think they have a lot of those sensibilities that make people say they're prog. I mean,
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
They're still doing stuff that a lot of other bands are not, and they also manage to do it just with a style that is completely distinctive.
Yeah.
Yeah, your list of influences is like, I mean, every prog fan would know them. You know, you have ELP, Genesis, Steven Wilson, all these people. But I did want to talk to you a little bit more just about your training, and then also where Renaissance and Wilson, those types of people come in. because I was doing a little bit of research on the way home, listening to Renaissance, and like I had listened to them before, and I knew who Annie Haslam was, and I'm kind of like, well, I really should honor my roots. And then I'm like, holy shit, why was I not listening to Renaissance a long time ago? Because they're phenomenal. So how did you come to find them, and how does that tie into like your vocal training and your musical upbringing?
Sure. So my dad actually introduced me to Renaissance. And I guess one of his friends had introduced him to them when he was a teenager. So thank you to whoever my dad's old friend was, because I was like maybe I was in the 8th grade when I started listening to Renaissance. I remember because I had an 8th grade teacher who like saw them in the 70s, and I loved talking to him about them. And of course, he thought that he probably never in a million years thought that he'd have just like a 13-year-old come into his class and be like, hey, you know who I really like? Annie Haslam. Yeah, he just happened to like, I guess, decide to pick up, I think it was like Tales of 1001 Nights. It's this live double album that they did with some orchestra. Is it the London Philharmonic? I can't remember, but some orchestra. And my dad was like, you have to listen to her voice. It is just so pure. And I listened to it. I'm like, oh my goodness, I've never heard a voice like this before. And from that moment on, like, I wrote a lot of music as a teenager, that like was like definitely trying to be a lot like the 70s bands that I was listening to. Actually, a couple songs that ended up on this album, I wrote.
That was the Timeless Sound stuff,
yeah,
right?
Timeless Sound, yeah. So that's definitely a song that was like super influenced by Renaissance. Everything from like the chunky piano chords to, even the way that I sing it with a much kind of cleaner, purer sound than I typically sing with, because I have a very like naturally raspy voice. I have to like put a lot of like effort into like making it sound like pretty. I think there's footage of me like in the studio for the Chaos game going, oh shit, I have to sound pretty for this one.
Turn on the pretty, please.
So that's actually a really interesting question, because I didn't have any vocal training until about November. Literally.
What?
We had begun recording the album. And I was like, I should probably like, I have some songs on here that are like really hard. Like The Clockwork Pheasant is one of the hardest songs that I've ever written.
Yeah.
Like the hardest parts. And I was like, this is my first full-length album. I've been waiting my life for this moment. Like I should really like get my ducks in a row and like get good technique. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I took a handful of lessons with a phenomenal instructor. His name is Mark, and I can't believe I'm forgetting his last name. Like I feel terrible. I'm Mark Reynolds, Dr. Mark Reynolds. And wow, like that was very new for me, because I tried taking lessons before. I took like 2 of them with my little brother was taking voice lessons, and I was like, oh, I should do that. Like there were a couple times in my life I'm like, I sing all the time, I should probably learn how to do it correctly so I don't hurt myself. But it was like a complete like botch, like it didn't work out at all. She was a great teacher, but like at that point I just don't think that I was like understanding everything that she was telling me, because there's like a lot of stuff when it comes to singing that like is just so abstract. It's like you have to make like this specific part of the back of your mouth make this shape, and it's like I don't know what the shapes are in that part of my mouth. I don't know what's going on back there.
That's what blows my mind about good singers and good screamers is just the visual, the mental gymnastics you have to do to try to place everything is crazy.
Yeah. And it actually got to be like, so I took a few lessons with Mark while I was actually recording. So like there are like parts on there that I'm still like untrained. But there were actually times that, anytime that you take lessons in something that you've been kind of doing self-trained for a while, you have all those bad habits or just habits that you have to break. And it's like trying to, walk and chew gum at the same time. So I was like having a hard time, like overthinking everything. I'm like, okay, I need to relax my neck, relax my teeth. I have to make sure I'm exposing my upper teeth while I'm singing. Make sure my tongue's loose. I have a tight tongue. That's one of my problems as a singer. Okay. My tongue is apparently super tight. And apparently that's also like a common issue. I was like, Dan, my little brother who also took voice lessons at one point, I was like, you would never believe like what's holding me back, like with singing. Like I was like, my tongue is tight. He's like, I had the same problem. Rachel had to give me tongue stretching exercises.
What?
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah. God, you got to hook me up because
tongue is in my family.
I don't know if that's my problem, but I mean, I don't know. Like when it comes to doing stuff that you're not trained at, at a certain point that you love it so much. Like I'm sure you're probably talking about your shitty commute. You probably are singing stuff in your car all the time. That's what I'm doing all the time. Like I'm probably just making my habits worse every time I do it. So at what point do you go, yeah, okay, I have to stop. I have to learn how to actually do this correctly. And I guess recording an album will make you do that.
Yeah, I was just like, I had a goal and I was like, if there's any time to do it, it's now. So yeah, that was cool. But it did become like an issue where I think I was recording Fractals and Coastlines. And there was this one part of the song where I was thinking of so many things that I was in my own head. And at one point, James, who in addition to being our lead guitarist, one of our main songwriters, is also our engineer and producer. Dungeon Master Sound Studios is his studio in South Jersey. He's like gotten so good in like such a short amount of time. But he's like, Nat, how about like you don't think about all of that just for one take and just give me like your Nat swagger. I'm like, okay, I'll just give you the Nat swagger. The Nat swagger, yeah. So then I did, and it was kind of like a balancing act. It's like sometimes it's like I need to really kind of pull back the overthinking, but then sometimes those lessons really helped me a lot, especially with Clockwork Pheasant. Just every song I had that was like in my bridge, which my voice teacher told me there actually is no such thing as a bridge. He's like, forget the bridge. You can completely get rid of the bridge. Like, it's just how much, it's just like you have to have one smooth, continuous transition, which is a nice goal to work toward. I still have a bridge. There are still times that, like, I'll be singing and it's like, I just sounded like a boy going through puberty just now. Cool.
I'm really surprised in a great way to hear that you were not classically trained, because I can certainly hear your influences coming out. And I actually got a really great question that I'm curious to hear your answer about. But because you do a little bit of piano and you do some other things, like, do you see yourself as a vocalist first who just accompanies yourself, or you like keyboards first and then you happen to sing? Like,
that is a good question. That changed. I've been playing piano my whole life, like since I was like a little kid. I started playing by ear, and then I started taking lessons when I was 8. So for a lot of my life, I thought of myself as a pianist first, and then I started singing a lot when I was like 12, because that's when I started writing music. And I'm like, well, I want there to be a melody, and the easiest way to get a singer to sing it is for me to be the singer, because I'm right here. Yeah. And then I can get around the whole like not having friends things, and so that was it. It was a foolproof plan. But I just sang a lot until I was starting to get okay with how it sounded. But at the time, and I really like the short answer is like somewhere, I guess like probably 18 to early 20s, it switched. And now I'm a much better singer than I am a pianist, for sure. I peaked as a pianist when I was like 15. Going to college, I just
were you
lost a lot of chops.
Playing, I don't want to say competitively, but like, school and like doing like the adjudicated stuff, or
I was never like good enough to like major in like piano performance. I don't know if maybe I could have like auditioned to major in like composition or something, but like, yeah, I was not very disciplined with practice. I always wanted to play by ear. I always wanted to play the songs that I really liked, or the songs that I was writing. And then I would practice just enough to like get better, but then like not enough to like actually be like a really good pianist. Like I was really good. I was really good in high school for a high schooler. Like, I'm not going to say like, yeah, I sucked, but piano players, like, it's insane how good they get.
Yeah, it's kind of like the standard by which a lot of parents will uphold their children to, like, oh, you have to go do a recital and you have to do this. And I don't know. I mean, if you were really good in high school, I'm sure with a little bit of practice, you'd probably still be quite good now.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, well, I did play In a Day, and it's not the hardest song in the world, but it sounds pretty good. I was pleased with how that went. And then the solo in Timeless Sound, where it goes,
and that's the one you've written like 14 years prior, and now it's just finally getting its chance to like spread its wings on your full-blown progressive rock album. When you were a kid, though, I mean, I'm getting the sense, obviously, you're a writer, you're very smart, you're very creative. Like, you did say earlier, though, that you don't write music really about your feelings. So when you were writing music back then, how was that, like, what was that creative outlet for?
I think my feelings found a way to like sneak in. But especially when I was a kid, I would just, it was a creative outlet. It was an emotional process in that, like, I was making like, I was making a creative product that reflected me and had emotion in it. But I almost think of music as a way to channel my emotions, as opposed to like making like a memorial of my emotions, if that makes sense.
That's a really good way to put it.
But like, as a teenager, my lyrics were just bad. It was very, very pretentious. I did tweak the lyrics to Timeless Sound a bit. A lot of them are the same, but Euclidean and non-Euclidean, Einstein and Newton, I and thou are new. And they replace, actually, believe it or not, even more pretentious lyrics. It was actually, it almost like makes sense, but I would, Timeless Sound was about like, I was like, what's really cool is like when you listen to music, you feel like time and space almost like kind of fall away. When I listen to Renaissance, I feel like I'm like in the 70s, like sitting next to Annie Haslam as she sings it. It's there's just something so transformative about it. And I was like, that's just really cool. I'm going to write this song about how, like, using music, you can just escape the bounds of time and space. And time is a scalar because it only goes in one direction. And that's how I remember, like, I did write that my junior year of high school because I was taking physics then. And I was like, yeah, but what if time were a vector? Meaning it can have multiple directions, huh? Wow, very clever.
We definitely would have been friends if we went to high school together. Like, everything.
You had a friend.
Yes, you would have had at least one friend.
Oh, that'd be lovely.
What if time was a vector? No, really though, like it's so fun to go back and look at all the embarrassing dumb shit you do as a high schooler, but then you think you wouldn't have become who you are now had you not done all that dumb stuff. Like,
yeah, it's like
it's just part of growing up.
You have to have like a soft spot for the. I knew I was pretentious in high school, and I was always like a little self-conscious about it. You know, I was like, I really like reading about philosophy and stuff, and some of these ideas are really rad, but, you know, it's embarrassing, like, how pretentious I am. And I had a friend who was, that's a very normal thing for a high schooler to worry about. Is like, wow, I'm really embarrassed about how pretentious I am.
At least you had self-awareness.
And I'm embarrassed.
Yeah.
But I had a friend who said, you know, there's something about pretentiousness that's like a little bit endearing, because, like, if you think about it, it's when someone's like reaching past, like a little bit beyond where they're at, like they're kind of stretching for something. I was like, thanks, that makes me feel better about it. So, but yeah, it's when you look at like whether you were like an angsty goth kid or like an emo kid, like
band geek
with the black X's on your hands, or like whatever like weird embarrassing shit you had like in, you know, as like a teenager, like that was like the weird embarrassing shit that crafted all of us into the weird embarrassing people we are today. Like, so you have to respect the part of the process. It's like,
true. It's so true. I mean, I think I've mentioned it a couple times on my show now, but I self-published a novel that I wrote in high school, and it was kind of when Twilight was very popular, but I kind of like jumped the curve a little bit, and I like to think I was writing about werewolves before Twilight did, just a little bit, but it was like, hey, I'm going to make an angry werewolf version of me who's mad at all the bad kids for underage drinking and being mean to smart people, because that's me, because I'm so smart. And now I'm kind of like, I mean, I will say, I think it's impressive that as a 17-year-old, I wrote a book and I also illustrated it, and I did all the layout and everything, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, wow, I was fucking insufferable. Like, how did I have friends? Because I was really pretentious too. And now I'm like, now I'm just pretentious about my music taste. No, I really try not to be, but it's, you do take those experiences and you run with them, and they do make you. You have the
kind of music taste that, like, you can brag about, though, because, like, I am just impressed by, like, how many bands, like, you know, and, like, you can speak, like, so fluently about their work, and, like, you find really cool music, and that's really impressive to someone like me, who I'm like, how do people find this cool music all the time?
Well, thank you.
This is so neat.
It's a hobby of mine. If you haven't,
you're a curator.
Yeah,
tastemaker.
I guess I'm a tastemaker. But that being said, like, you have to make a conscious decision almost to ostracize yourself from quote unquote normal society when you start to listen to crazy music like Cabinets of Curiosity and all the weird things you're doing. I mean, I hope you're not offended by me using the term weird, because it's very weird and I love it. No. And at some point, I guess as a creator, you have to sacrifice, okay, I feel like this probably won't go mainstream, but I want to do it for me. Like, how do you kind of grapple with that, and what role does the band as a whole play in your life? Like, you know, you're just kind of doing this for fun. What are your aspirations with all of it?
I think we all would like to be really successful one day. We're just not, we're setting ourselves up so that we can't be heartbroken. So we play it really cool and act like we're above it all.
Perfect. Perfect answer. But I like
to get a record deal one day.
Yeah, I like the realism though.
Oh, that'd be beautiful.
What label would you want to be on, or like who are the kind of artists you would see yourself being surrounded by?
If I say it, would
yes, manifest your destiny.
Oh yeah, that's the opposite of jinxing it. Yeah, so whatever serves like my fantasies the best, I will choose as being the force I believe in. I would love to like K-Scope.
I'm terrible at record labels. I might know a lot of bands, but what are the bands on that label?
Oh man, so started like with Steven Wilson was like how I found out about them, but if I were to rattle off like
like
Pineapple Thief, Anchoress, who's really cool. I think is I in the morning K-Scope, Chris?
Hi, Chris.
Morning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I in the morning is really cool. Oh yeah, this is Chris.
Hello, I tag you on the internet all the time. Hi.
Yeah, he actually, he was the one who told me about you. He's like, I met this girl on the prog metal Discord, and she has like this Facebook group for like women in prog, and I'm like, that's so cool because I want to learn more about women in prog. Like, I get embarrassed by like
you are one. That's the thing. You are one. You don't need to learn about it. You are one.
But I want to meet more. It's like I need my like I need my coven of witches, my coven of prog witches. And then I was like, yeah, I would love that. And that happened. And I'm not very active on Facebook, so I'm like very sporadic. We're on Discord. Discord always like overwhelms me, but I will be there tomorrow.
Yes.
I'm like the worst with social media, even though like it's something I do professionally. Like I'm really good at being like a company on social media.
And that's what you do for your day job is you pretend to be a company on social media.
I'm a few companies on social media, or I have been a few companies on social media.
Well, it's like asking a plumber to fix his own toilet. I would never want to come home after doing social media all day and hop on Facebook, so I wouldn't feel that bad about it. Oh
my God, yeah. It definitely gets it out of your system. It's like, I used to have like a really bad Twitter habit, and then I started like managing corporate Twitters. I'm like, I have no, urge to reload this.
Twitter is a cesspool. I finally quit Twitter, and I'm so much better off for it. It's awful.
Yeah, it's gross. It's pretty gross. I mean, they're all gross. Like I said, I'm a marketer, so like I know a lot of marketers who don't use social media.
Are you the one though taking care of like the your album release stuff, the Bandcamp? Is that like you are the mastermind behind that?
Yeah, Chris and I do a lot of the like most of the digital marketing and PR. Like I do more of like the marketing side. He does more of the PR side, and he's been really good at it. Like I was really impressed. He got like, I mean, first of all, he introduced me to like the Discord, and then like he sent the album to a few reviewers, a lot of whom like he had like the Bitly link so he could track the opens. He had a really high success rate. I was really, so if you ever need a PR guy, Chris Hornyak is really good.
This guy, your husband, sitting over there.
Yeah.
I was going to say, he's like head fanboy for Cabinets of Curiosity, and I respect that because I wish I could only provide more emotional energy for fangirling because I already give so much, but I could just continue to give more.
Yeah, he's a good hype man. I really appreciate that, especially because like I'm so awkward. Like Chris is so much less awkward than I am. It's great. I don't know why. We're both really big dorks. It's just he has social skills. And I have low self-esteem. So that's kind of how that worked out.
Girl, you are in my club. We definitely would be friends. The low self-esteem dork club. But honestly, doing stuff like this has helped me increase that a lot because I realize...
You're awesome.
Well, thanks. So are you. There's so many people... out there lurking in the world who I think feel very disconnected from mainstream music and the culture in general, that they're just like, I guess I'll just be a hermit and go on prog archives all the time. Like there's a time and place for all kinds of music, and I guess you just have to find your community that you kind of fit into. Have you introduced like your friends and family to your band and gotten them to enjoy it, or like how's your success rate with that? Because I know this type of stuff is not for everybody, but when you really strip it back and you look at how much work goes into trying to, and that was going to be my next question, is how the hell do you arrange and compose and write for a 7-piece band, but how do you get people to listen to it?
Like I said, Chris has been a great hype man. I mean, a lot of social media, certainly like everyone in my family and, all of my friends have listened and enjoy it. Well, yeah, Chris is like, hey, Nat, why don't you call all of your friends and tell them about, yeah, I did. I already called my mom. That's not true. I have wonderful friends, and they're actually super supportive. I have like a few who've like pre-ordered the album, and I could see that, and it's like that's really nice. Like I would have sent you one for free, but it's so. A lot of people like the music, or at least tell me that they do. So that's been cool. I think there is like. There's like a song on this album, at least, that I think like pretty much everyone can find at least like a couple minutes of something that they enjoy. Because some of the songs are like, very long. But, In a Day is like more of like the poppy, like not poppy, but like singer-songwriter kind of, I don't know, like where that song came into my head. Well, actually, I don't know.
I kind of feel like the new album is essentially a musical. It is kind of like a space opera because you have all these little like soft interludes and kind of like going from character to character, and then like the music video with the brothers trying to explode the mountain and stuff. Like there's just so many like goofy little hooks and things. My actual brother. Oh, that's right. That was your actual brother in the lab coat, right?
Yeah, he's living with me for a little bit. When his apartment flooded, I was like, please, like, don't live in a flooded apartment. You can stay with me. But it was great. It was like, hey, Dan, I want to make a video for this, and I have no money. You want to like lip sync in front of a green screen for me? So yeah, there's that song, which is like kind of like surf rock. Like I said, In a Day is like, I think anyone, like, even if you don't like prog, like that's not a prog song. So like that's something for you. There's metal, there's Angular Sterility, which is like super technical. There's just so much. There's like a smorgasbord of genres. We just like all threw it in. So that's the nice thing about like introducing, like if I meet somebody and they're like, oh, you're in a band, like, why don't you show me one of your songs? And
you sure you want to ask that question? Like,
well, I always ask them. I'm like, yeah, that's typically the response. I'm like, look, I'm telling you, it's really weird, but, and then I send them whatever song I think is most to their taste. So that's the fun thing about prog is like you mix it up, like you can do so much with it. You never have to have two songs that even sound a little bit alike because that's just how the genre works. So yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty true. I guess as I think about like, your role in the band, and then you have another woman in your band, your flute player. You're already fighting all these things. Like, okay, we're a genre dramatic band. Like, we don't just play one style, and then that kind of makes it hard to, like, whenever you guys do decide to tour or play shows, it's like, how do you pick a band to be on the bill? Is it going to jive? That sort of thing. But then there's always this debate, and I'm only asking you this just because we're both prog ladies, but everybody always debates, okay, female fronted is not a genre. What does that mean to you? Why is it important that women get involved in the scene, or do you not care, or whatever?
I think it's important for anybody who really connects to prog to be able to enjoy it without gatekeepers, and to be able to perform it without being treated as lesser than because they don't look like the, like, I don't know, 60-year-old white man that people think is the typical progger. And I think just on a selfish level, I just would love to have more women to talk to about prog. But it's funny because, like, even though the genre has this reputation for being a sausage fest, I, like, my roommate for 3 years in college, I met when she walked up to me and said, "Hey, I like your Rush shirt." That's how I met her. And we've been like BFFs ever since. I don't know a lot of women proggers, because I don't know a lot of proggers. I don't know a lot of men proggers, but I do think it's just important that like if this is the music that you enjoy, that like I said, like, you know, don't feel like just because you're a woman, you're never going to be able to find a band. You're never going to like you are. And I think that part of the issue is that like a lot of times, like like women in general as musicians don't always get the same kind of clout, especially as songwriters. I find like, I think like in music, like people are really willing and able to describe a woman as being a great singer. Yeah. In classical music, you know, you have great, you know, female pianists, like violinists, like every instrument. But like when I think of like some of my favorite violinists and like pianists in particular, like I usually think of a woman. But like in rock, it's still like there are a lot of stereotypes. I think when you picture like a rock star, you very rarely do you picture a woman. And I think part of that is just because like we've been, it's almost like the great man fallacy of history, where like we think of like, when you think of like the people who made rock and roll what it is, and people think about like Led Zeppelin and the Beatles, like all of these, you know, but like very rarely do women, especially women songwriters, besides like Carole King, like Joni Mitchell, kind of ever figure in those conversations. And I think part of that is because like things did suck for women
at the time they were writing music
for a long, long time, until as recently as probably 15 years into the future. But you know, it is getting better now. And I feel like now, like it, like I haven't discovered as many like incredible female musicians as I have in the past 5 years. I think things are finally starting to split open in that way. When I think of like who I think is probably the most important songwriter in top 40 right now, I would say it's Janelle Monáe. Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, she's incredible.
And it's like, yeah, there's just, I just think a lot of it's getting better right now. I guess, yeah, female fronted isn't a genre because it's not a genre. Like technically, literally, that's true. But I like to seek out not even female fronted, just women in the band,
right?
Women songwriters, especially, because it's just another kind of experience to listen to music about, and that's cool. Like, you know, it's like I've heard enough men for a lifetime.
Well, that's where I always find it hard is, like, I've never really considered myself especially feminist, to be honest, and yet I co-admin a group for women in progressive music. But to me, it's less about the, okay, you're inherently better or worse because of your gender. It's just like hey, I just want people to know that we're out there and that we shouldn't be discouraged. If your music stinks, I don't care if you're male or female. Yeah, your music can still stink. It's always hard for me to toe that line because, of course, I want to support women doing what they should do, and they shouldn't have any boundaries on that. But then I also don't want to feel like I'm pandering to it either, you know?
Yeah, but I feel like I hear a lot more like mediocre dude bands than I do mediocre women bands. I just feel like women are just, this is gender essentialist, and I don't mean it, but the women that I know are so perfectionistic that it's like, I'm not going to let like anything that like falls short of my standards, like, whereas like men, they're like, I made this thing, so obviously it's the best. That's not even gender essentialist. I think that a lot of that is in how we socialize men and women, where like women, we always feel like we're not good enough. And like a lot of men just, you know, because they're used to being listened to all the time by default, it's like, this is obviously genius, the song I just wrote.
I feel like there's some truth to that. Yeah, and again, it's not even about biology at that point. It is a lot to do with socialization, which I guess is why I do try to support this as an endeavor, because what changes people is social advocacy in a sense. And so I guess that's why I'm so passionate about trying to introduce people to more just women involved bands in general, but I just as many times, if not more so, share bands that have no women in them at all. It's just, I don't care. If it's good music, I want to share it, basically.
Yeah.
But
and part of the effort for me is because most of the people, like the vast majority of musicians I listen to are male. And that just stinks. And that's something I want to fix, especially because, sometimes I just crave listening. Like, this is actually where singers do come in. Like, sometimes I just crave a female voice. And it's like,
absolutely.
I just need more of that. Like a woman playing a guitar and a man playing a guitar. I can't really hear a difference except that, they just have their own unique style. It's not because they're, male or female, but like a voice you can kind of tell. Even though like I sometimes joke that I'm a tenor. But I have no problem saying I'm like a super feminist though. Like I can get pretty aggressive about it.
Hey, I'm open to any viewpoint, and if it's convincing enough, I'll look that way. But I don't know. I guess I have to be a moderator on this show, and I don't want to steer anybody into answering a question the way that I want them to. But
as a guest, I can say whatever.
Exactly. I try not to get too risque. No, but I appreciate that in general because representation is important. But then, I also want to also uphold merit above anything. But I don't know. It is an exciting time, I think, to be a woman in the progressive music community, in the metal community in general, and that's kind of exciting. So I hope that this album release goes awesome and that you're going to hopefully see some response to it. Definitely going to be up there, I think, in the echelon of, I hope so, of like modern, crazy concept album prog, and I will gladly... I will gladly help you guys get there. I did have one other question that I didn't get to ask earlier, but how did you find the rest of your band? Because I don't imagine it's easy to just compile like a sax player and keyboards and flute and all these types of instruments you don't really find quite as often.
It is hard. We're still looking for a drummer.
But your initial crew of people, how did you get them all to sign on board?
I didn't have to do anything. So I actually joined the band a little bit late in the game. They had already had, so James started it. And originally, he was like, I'm going to start a prog project. And he created a Dropbox folder called the Prog-eject. The name came later. But he and Jared were friends for a long time since they were kids.
That's your bassist? Yeah, okay.
My favorite living bassist. But and I guess they got their friend Matt, who was our drummer at the time. And Matt, I love you. Anytime you want to come back, I will welcome you with open arms. You're such a he's the drummer on our EP.
Yes, so he is.
He's so good. Matt, if you're hearing this, we love you, man. Kelly and I, we love you.
Yes, come back. They have more albums to write.
And actually, I think he's going to help us record our next EP too.
And they have more shows to play with Thank You Scientist.
Yes, we can't play with Thank You Scientist until we get a drummer, Matt. No pressure or anything. So and then I forget how they got in touch with Anthony, the saxophonist. But somehow that happened, and he was and is dating Christina. They're power couple of woodwind excellence. So then she got in, and we had a different keyboardist back then. I'm not actually sure how James met Justin, our current keyboardist. I forget how they got in contact, but he's like, oh, yeah, we have this guy, Justin. He's going to come audition for us, and he's great. But yeah, I found the band was mostly formed by the time, I just happened to be browsing on Craigslist ever since Chris Squire died. And yes, that was a big, existential, do or die moment for me. I'm like, shit, I haven't done anything with my music ever. I've never been in a good prog band. The one thing I've always wanted. So one day I'm like, what the hell? I just start browsing through Craigslist, and it was like, we need a singer for a progressive rock band. I'm like, no. Like 20 minutes from my house too. I'm like, what are the chances that like somebody wants to form like an early 70s inspired prog band out in like, the Pine Barrens? Like, come on, how does so I was skeptical, but I messaged James. I'm like, look, I'll be real with you. It's always been my dream. This is something that I've always, I'm very passionate about prog. We talked on the phone. He was like really easy to talk to. And he was like, yeah, we have a bunch of material written. We have midis if you want to hear them, but, come, audition with us. And when I did, and that was like the first time I heard them play, they played Nobody's Angel, which at the time didn't have a vocal part because there was no vocal. No, it had a vocal part. It didn't have lyrics. That was a James written vocal part. Very cool. When I first heard it, I was just floored. Like, I was like, no way. Like from like that beginning like guitar intro in Lydian mode, which is like my favorite mode. So okay, like I'm already here. I was just like, I had not felt that way about music in so long, and I like by the end of that night, I was just thinking to myself like, they have to let me in. I would be so brokenhearted. Like, I can't get my hopes up on this. This is so good. I want to be part of this band. But yeah, for some reason they let me join, which was great. And
for some reason, like, you're a great singer. For some reason they just let me join. But
yeah, but you have to understand, like, these are the like most talented performers like I had ever met. And like, I went to Montclair. Like, there were a lot of good, like, I didn't know a ton of music majors there, but I knew a lot of musicians and like a few music majors. But like, you couldn't walk like 5 feet on that campus without running into like a just crazy talented musician. But golly, those kids can play their instruments. It's just, it's like, it was very intimidating, but I'm just so grateful. Like, I just feel so blessed to be in this band.
Well, I can tell you're like outpouring your feelings for it, which is great. I mean,
it's terrible. I don't like feelings.
No, push them back inside. No, well, I have too many, so I can share some with you.
Yeah.
But no, it is very apparent that Cabinets of Curiosity is like a thing, and you're part of the thing. You're in love with the thing, and it's just, I love it. It just makes me happy just to see somebody who's like, I'm so excited about it. But that is a damn accomplishment. You have this giant album coming out. That leads me then to what I would consider always my last hot seat question.
Ooh.
And I used to tell people this up front, and now I don't because I just like the reactions. But if you had to choose 3 albums to listen to for the rest of your life, and only those 3, what would they be?
That's a good one.
Most people get mad, so...
I think it's important to have a good spread, right? So, 3 albums.
Anything you want.
Yeah. What could I listen to over and over again and never get sick? Well, I would say Ghost Reveries, because I probably have listened to that to the extent that like anybody else would get like so sick of it, but it never gets old for me. So definitely Ghost Reveries by Opeth. Wind and Wuthering by Genesis. That's just one of my all-time favorite. Like, I think I would die of heartbreak if I couldn't listen to that. The third one's hard. Let's see.
I can tell you're really thinking about it.
I am. That one's hard because it's the last one. Maybe Quadrophenia by The Who.
Oh, interesting. I am really dumb, and I only just first heard that album for the first time last week.
I'm so jealous that you got to hear it.
I didn't even listen to it. I didn't even listen to it all the way through either. It was just like a passing thing.
That means you get to listen to it for the first time all the way through.
Yeah. My mom's a big fan of The Who, and I didn't realize how kind of ahead of their time they were. So there's so many There are so many bands I have to listen to still. You know, all the stuff that you've mastered, I'm like, ooh, just getting started.
Well, that's why we just have to like keep like talking to each other and like sharing music. Like, you give me the new, I'll give you the old.
Fine. We'll meet each other in the middle at some point.
Yeah. But, I guess we'll meet each other at like Marillion.
Yeah. I've listened to Marillion and I can't get into them super a lot, but that's because I've only heard like the one modern album, and what's the creepy one with the kid in the soldier's uniform with like the clown.
Like I said, Marillion is like a little new for me, so that's why we have to meet there.
It's that one with the kid. I just remember the album
one
cover.
With the creepy child.
The one with the creepy child on the front cover.
Many
he's like barefoot.
prog albums with really creepy, like either stories or covers.
Are there any other things you want to mention just about the album? Or I always drop links and stuff in the end of my episode and then in the text below. But your chance to be on record is now.
Yeah, I guess just go to our Bandcamp, cabinetsofcuriosity.bandcamp.com, and you can get the album. And it'd be really cool if you did. Thanks.
Great. No, that's awesome. Perfect sales pitch. Complete honesty. But really, though, everybody listening should go give this a listen. It's truly like a wild ride through jazzy, funky, crazy, modern, progressive music. It's nuts. It's funny. It's goofy. It's just, I don't know. I had a good full listen, and I'm like, okay, I got to do that again soon. So yeah, I'll spread the word. But
thank you.
Nat, thank you very much for coming on the show,
so much
and
for having me.
I will chat prog with you anytime.
Yes, and we shall.
Yes, perfect. All right, well, I'm going to sign off though. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.
You can check out Cabinets of Curiosity on a variety of places on the internet. They are on Spotify, they're on Bandcamp, they also have a Twitter page, an Instagram, and of course a Facebook page where you can learn a little bit more about the band and what they're up to with this new release. But I would also highly recommend you go to cabinets-of-curiosity.com. That is the band's main website, and from there you can actually check out the novel that Natalie wrote as the companion piece to the album. It has some great artwork in it, and it really helps you get a sense of what's going on with the music. So definitely go check that out. And always, thanks for listening.
I swear